Hey, good morning, everyone. Pastor Tony here. Hope that this greeting, this word of encouragement, brings you encouragement this morning as we gather up our day and begin to do what is needed. This week, I've struggled with a couple things, and I know I'm not alone. One of the things that I was just minding my own business, looking at some teaching tapes, and came across a heading that said, "How Not to Take Things Personal." And I thought to myself, wow, that caught my interest, and maybe you're like me. Some days you just struggle that some of the things that are happening you take personal, even though you know that it's not necessarily your fault, but you take it personal. And this man began to share. He was a salesman, and his job was to sell things and gather people together and give a lecture in the hopes that at the end they would all sign on to buying into what he was selling. And the whole time I'm watching this, I'm thinking as a pastor that I'm not selling anything, but I am trying to get people to buy into my beliefs in the truths of God, and sometimes we struggle with that. And I began to think, as he says, sometimes people wouldn't be paying attention. They would be on their phones. They would be talking to the people next to them. Maybe some were sleeping because they were forced to be there by their employers, and they were waiting for lunch. And he said sometimes that was so discouraging. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, in the sermons and in times of speaking and in times you're trying to go one-on-one with someone, and you're just thinking they're not grabbing it, and you begin to take it personal. Lord, how do I relate to them to better bring them the information that's needed to help them along their day? And as this man began to talk, I began to think in myself, maybe this is one of the things that I struggle with, that I'm trying to take these things on and I'm taking them personal, and the actions of someone else is affecting me. It's easy to go and blame someone else. It's all his or her fault. It's all their fault. They're not listening. But really, when you stop and you think about taking things personal, it's because your ego, hear me for a second, your ego has led you to be offended by the actions of others, because what you're trying to do, they're not receiving. And this man began to speak, and he began to say, well, it's not all about you. And that wasn't an aha moment, but it was a moment that I had to stop and to think, maybe my ego is getting in the way of this. Maybe it is cutting to the heart, because I want respect. Don't they know that I spent a whole lot of time doing this? Don't they know this is the truth of God, and that they should really be taking it to heart and responding? And you're looking for a response that you can't force onto somebody else. And he began to just say, once we settle down our ego, and once we settle down that it's not all about me, and you begin to look at why you're doing these things, you realize that it is all about the Lord ministering. It's about the Lord speaking to a heart. It's about doing the very best you can. If you're a salesman, doing the very best you can to sell whatever you're going to sell, and then leave it into the hands of the person to make their own decision, knowing that you can't force them to make the decision that they either need to make or you would like to see them make. So this morning I'm bringing up a word that maybe we need to take a check on our ego, so that the Lord can minister and work through us. And he used an example, and I thought it was kind of good. He said, who wants a $20 bill? And all these hands went up. Then he crumpled it in his hands, and he said, who still wants this $20 bill? And the hands went up again, and he actually literally put this $20 bill in his mouth and started like he was chewing on it, and pulled it out and said, now who wants it? Well, there was less hands, but there was still hands. And then he threw it down on the ground and stomped on it, and there were still hands that wanted it. And he looked at the person closest to him, and he said, why do you still want it? And the man brought up a really key point. He said, no matter what you do to that 20, it still has a value of $20. And maybe that's you today. Maybe with all of this stuff going on, maybe you feel like a crumpled up $20 bill. But remember that you still have value. And that you still have to first respect yourself so that you can get others to respect you. You still have to really understand that it is not all about me. Even though in the society, we're living in a society that's saying it's all about you, it's really not. As a believer, it's not all about us. It's all about Christ and what Christ wants to do through us and in us. So this morning, your word of encouragement is know that you still have value. No matter what you're struggling with, you still have value to the Lord. And maybe if he is trying to tell you that it's not all about you and you're getting an ego check like I got, then maybe the Lord will be able to work through you and in you in certain situations that he's placed you in. So you go and you be encouraged. Know that I love you. God bless.